thank you, Maria, for joining me in the podcast. I don't know. I think probably this is the I even forgot ninth episode or 10th episode. Whatever that may be when I get it published. But Maria is the founder and publisher of Presente Pittsburgh Latino Magazine. I'm going to show it to you. Oh, by the way, that she's from she lives in Allison Park.
That's
right.
right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And let me show you guys. That's where Allison Park is. It's not part of the 90 neighborhood of Pittsburgh. It's 15 minutes away if you drive according to Google Maps estimation from where we are in Pittsburgh. We are here at the tip in downtown, and Allison Park is right here. It's 15 minutes, and you could either take 28 or number 8, right? Or you could take Highway
28.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so it was a mess, right? There has been some construction in that junction, Highland Park. I remember that I had to go to Oakmont Bakery, and I got stuck there for 30 minutes.
Right. Yeah, it's been going on for a couple of years. It's frustrating. It's been better, I would say, like the last year or so. And, I guess we have to focus on the end. At the end, it's going to be like amazing.
So when is the end? When is the plan?
The end. So yeah, they're just expanding lanes, I believe, so that the 2 main lanes can keep moving, while the other ones, if you need to exit or whatever, you can do it without obstructing like the traffic of the main 2 lanes. So that's gonna be nice when it's done.
Oh, so do you travel to the city on daily basis, or what is your day-to-day commuting Pittsburgh life traffic?
Sure, I used to commute to Pittsburgh every day. I worked downtown specifically for around 9 years or so. So, I used to do that. I come on 28 to downtown every morning, and every, back in the afternoon. And you get used to it. I think when you live that life of the, in the traffic and whatever. But since I left that job and I started doing the magazine, I mainly work, either out of co-working spaces, or my home, it just depends, so I'm not as much on the road. But I used to like coming downtown every day. I like, the energy, just seeing the people. I thought I was really fortunate at that time when I was coming here.
Yeah. Yeah. So by the way, for those who don't know that, here, the studio office, it's on the 10th floor of Benedum Trees, courtesy of Benter Foundation, Point Park University Center of Media Innovation. So they are the ones who are running it with funding from the Benter Foundation. So we really appreciate it. Otherwise, Storybrooke would not be able to afford it. It's premium. I could see the Market Square right here from the window. One of these days I show you the video. Okay, so going back to your experiences being in Pittsburgh. So I know that because we met before. We met for a few years ago during that inaugural meeting for the Pittsburgh Media Partnership.
Correct.
Pre-COVID, so it was, I don't know, a decade ago. So it's a long time ago.
Right. That's what it feels like.
And I know that you were born in Puerto Rico, right? So I recently read your article, and let me also show the audience here the article that was published by public source, right? And and there were some sometimes funny and sad story. It's funny that people didn't know that Puerto Rico was part of the United States, right? Actually, only like a few weeks ago, or 1 or 2 months ago, there was a national news saying that a person was stopped at the airport, right? asking
Yeah.
for passport, and
Yeah.
and that person had to fight and fight and fight. It's like, hey, we are U.S. citizens.
That's right. That's right. Well, and the experience that I was talking about in this article, I mean, that was like back like 20 years ago. So you would think it's better today, but I don't know, how much better since you still hear about it. Just recently, I think there was like in the news, like a gentleman who was renting a car in, I think it was Louisiana, and he went to the rental car, and they were like, "No, we don't take Puerto Rico license. You have to show something else." And the funny thing is, like, they would ask for something else, but to travel here, I didn't have to in Puerto Rico. When I got on the airplane, I showed my ID, right? But it's like here, like they didn't know. Like I didn't have a passport back then because unless I was traveling internationally, I didn't need it.
Yes.
So then they'd be like, you have to show a passport or something. You'd be like, what are you talking about? Yeah, so, but hopefully the news, stories or my article, things like that will help to spread the word more.
Yeah.
And inform people so that they know.
So sometimes, I don't want to lay the blame on whatever, right? Okay, but when I was born in Indonesia, I grew up in Indonesia, and then when I was in Indonesia, I met several yeah, children of expats, from America, and sometimes they joke, and this joke was, I don't know, joke quote unquote probably, and it was repeated when I attended college, and they, not me, but they told me that, oh, we Americans are bad with geography. Had there not been a traveler or live in Jakarta, Indonesia, they would not have known where Indonesia was. Probably they would have known about Bali, island of Bali. Probably everyone knows what Bali is, but not Indonesia. But Bali is actually an island, one of 17,000 islands in Indonesia. So, but they know where Indonesia,
where that is,
right? So honestly too, when I moved here, I think I moved here in 1990. I didn't know about Puerto Rico, right? I didn't even know that Puerto Rico was a territory. It was actually,
right,
has a U.S. passport, right? That's
right.
but I have two kids going through U.S. education system from kindergarten, and I didn't recall that they actually learn about U.S. territories, right? They might, learn about Alaska. They might learn about Louisiana Purchase. They might know about Hawaii, but not the territories. I wonder why, right? Even now, I'm thinking like, I need to look up how many territories do United States have, right? Is it just 2, or is there any more? Do you know?
There's a few. See, now you're testing my idea. But I think
I don't want to put you on the spot, but it's like wondering.
Maybe around 4. I'm gonna leave it at 4 because I think that's a safe number.
All right. So, what did you come to? Is this your first mainland place of living here? I mean, from Puerto Rico, and you mentioned in the article that you came here for college, right? Was it Carnegie Mellon or was it somewhere else?
It's Carnegie Mellon.
Okay. So you had your bachelor as well as your master here.
Yes, I got my bachelor's at CMU and the master's at Duquesne.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what were your majors?
So at CMU, I got my bachelor's in communication design. And, that included some like photography, digital imaging. And then the master's was in multimedia technology.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So if you don't mind, you can share me how you are now in this space and presenting, running Pittsburgh Latino Magazine. I know that your background is in communication, so you're somehow in that space already. But now you're actually there. Okay, I'm the publisher. I'm gonna make it happen. So what is, how did it start?
Sure. So first of all, since we just talked about my background, so for many years, that's what I did. I was like in the world of graphic design, web design, communication. I always loved language, just like writing, learning languages, things like that. And my last job, which I had here downtown, was actually doing like communications for a corporation. And, part of that was like doing their social media, all the like internal communications for the company, external communications as well. And anyway, all that experience that I gained through all those years, it really helped whenever I started thinking of, just what being a Latino here in Pittsburgh was, and being a mother trying to connect my kids to our cultures. And my husband is from Chile, by the way, so we're a international family. But yeah, I just wanted to find, things to participate in. And it was just hard. Like many times I would find events after the fact. And I knew of people who I talked to, same thing. I became a volunteer with the Pittsburgh Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and they had a gala on, this was 2019, and it was amazing. I mean, it was just like such a grand event. And one of the things like we all talked about was like, there was so little coverage of it, like in the news. And then I would talk to people outside about it. And they'd be like, well, I didn't know that was going on. Other Latinos, I'm saying. I didn't know that was happening. Like I would have, got a ticket, I would have gone, all that. So that paired with people wanting to know where to buy, like their products that they want to cook their good food with and everything. Just kind of like the immigrant experience.
Right.
Which even though, we already talked about Puerto Rico is part of the U.S., but culturally, it's a very unique culture that has a lot or most from, that Latin American Hispanic culture. And so for a while there, I started thinking, well, wouldn't it be great, if there was a website, or just somewhere where all this information was available to everyone. And also there was a lot on Facebook, or the different organizations that are around. They also had information, but it just felt like there were all these different, 20, 30 different places that you would have to search to find out what was going on. And so then that kind of pushed me like, well, I have the background and here's this problem, then maybe, I have to solve it. Yeah. And that's what got me on that path.
Yeah, it's great. So let me show the audience here the website and the magazine. Yeah, the magazine that you're running, Pittsburgh Latino Magazine, and I'm really glad that the articles, the coverage, that it's bilingual, so it's not just as in Spanish, but it's also in English. Because sometimes when you see like special niche magazine or publication, it's I pick up some publication here in Pittsburgh. And it actually is written in Spanish only.
Yes.
Right. I forgot the name, but I thought it was yours. Right. But then but I was like, but again, when you mentioned that you want to bring exposure from the outside, the non-Latino Hispanic community to your community, you have to introduce it in their language, which is English, right? So by having this magazine, that it's like, hey, let me check it out. So it's like what it's a portal to be in our community, to be in your community, to know, for exactly. me, I like to know where the, what is it called, Trifongo is. The Mofongo, the Fongo. Right? So, that would be a great place to look up and see where the festival or the activities that you have here in Pittsburgh. And talking about the festivals or events, they have so many festivals. There's so many things going on in Pittsburgh. And sometimes, yeah, I find it frustrating too. That is everything gets watered down, right? Because I saw somebody put on the Instagram. I forgot. Sorry, you guys put it. I should have remembered the name, but they listed that we have 18,000 nonprofit organizations here in Pittsburgh.
I've heard that.
Right. So I mean, yeah, and probably most of them have events. Most of them have some community engagements, right? And we don't have that many people in Pittsburgh. Right? So getting exposure is really tough, right?
Yeah.
So so which one that if someone has to pick an article right now from your magazine, so which one did we have? Not for the Latino Hispanic community, but for other people to that we have to pay attention to. Which one would that be?
So let's scroll up here a little bit.
Yeah, so we're looking at the presentepgh.com. For those who do not have screen, you can go there.
Okay. So, I mean, there have been some events. If you scroll up, these are like the more, I guess, like recent stories. And we've been sharing about like a bilingual or multilingual. That's the one there on the left. Yeah. That's like a preschool that has learning, for kids, and they teach in different languages to get them exposed to that, and that's in Zillinople. It's the next one over on the other side. Yeah, that one.
Okay, right.
The first one there, children experience early. Yeah, so that's that one. So just getting that information out there that Latinos are opening businesses, that are making a difference in their community. And then the one that you were looking at before, we love posting opportunities, so anything that pops up that Latinos can take advantage of, then, that's what we're here for. So then there's like the free training on Medicaid eligibility, and then the online resources for learning English. So, we like to post a variety of things, including events, like we said, opportunities. We like to showcase our businesses and just people in the community that are making an impact here.
So looking at your career, your education here in the United States, not United States, here in Pittsburgh, and then you work here, like you mentioned, in the building websites, doing communications, and but a lot of immigrants, really outside United States, sometimes it's really hard to find jobs here. I mean, especially for those who have educations outside the United States, right? Don't you find that in your community that people are probably, asking for your help or guidance, or how they can break into the job market here?
Yeah, I know that is something that some of the local organizations, they touch upon those things sometimes. How, some people may have, master's degree or doctorate, in their country, but then like when they come here, it's just hard to find their place. And that's even set aside from do they have a job permit, can they work or things like that. Right. But yeah, it is challenging, and then with the language too, which it's kind of like the first thing that they have to
overcome.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I remember that when I frequented market over here, Market Square, I met a person. I forgot the name, but he had the food stall, Turkish food, and the employee, or I think it was the part owner, and he was actually from Iraq. Yeah, and he told me that he was an engineer. He took care of machines, heavy machinery,
Yeah.
right? And then, but he couldn't find jobs. He had permits. He had all the paperwork. So yeah, that's sort of the big part. Get all the language and the part of uh, a working permit. The permit to do so, and then they've tried to find jobs, and he couldn't. And so that, and then he had to make a living, so he had to create, build a restaurant, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I must stress out that it was not his first choice, right? His first choice, like to be an employee,
Right.
right? Using the degree that he had earned and worked hard for it in their own country. So that's quite sometimes frustrating, right? Yeah. So I know that there's was it like a co-working space or that in Brookline, right? That is built for, I mean, in partnership with Casa San Jose, I think.
They are separate, but they do collaborate. You're talking about the Pittsburgh Hispanic Development Corporation.
There you go.
Yeah, kind of a big name, but yeah, and in Spanish, they call it the Corporación Hispana. But yeah, all of the Latino organizations here, they are amazing, all of them. I have had the opportunity to work more closely with the PHDC and also the chamber. But yeah, for the PHDC, they do have a co-working space, which I actually work there sometimes. And yeah, they've helped so many people. Some of the, like what you just talked about now, people who just got here and they have to make a living, right? And many people, even though they may have, these degrees, like they can't really use them. So then, obviously people just start thinking of ideas, and they've helped many. I mean, over 100 people just open new businesses, and they guide people through all that in Spanish, and not just in Spanish, because there's obviously the language, but then just cultural. There's just like some cultural things that sometimes they just kind of like get in the way. People kind of going to the next step and getting the funding and expanding, or things like that. And they're really excellent in helping guide people through those things. They help everyone. They have Guillermo Velázquez over there, the executive director. He always tells like, well, we help everyone. So they do. I mean, they help people who speak English too, and just not Latinos only. Just people in the community as well. But I would say I really love how they help the people who speak Spanish and are maybe like not so well versed in the cultural aspect of things, and help them make their dreams come true when it comes to like to owning their own business. And also they have some programs that deal with housing as well. So they sometimes have they work with landlords to be able to provide these like renting opportunities to some people in the community as well, which is very helpful.
Right. So I'm pretty sure that the program that they're running, they also help them to find jobs, because not everyone have. For me, especially, just use me as an example. Like to start a business is really hard, right? It's not that day one you get profit. Sometimes in I don't know, year 10 that you get profit. Right? Or probably don't ever get profit, right? So sometimes there's people like, oh, I wish I could just be an employee, right? So sometimes, can someone help me be an employee in the education, in the training that I've had for many, many, many years, right? So that's sometimes like heartbreaking that, someone with the MD degree with the skills, and then they come over here and they have to do something else, right? So I think yeah, when I read about the news about that PhDC being open, and it's like, oh, okay, hopefully they could also address that's great. You have that's a PhDC, but please, also have time to see that why was that created. I mean, it looks like a lot of people, a lot of immigrants come over here. When they come over here, they not necessarily want to create business, but they want to be part of the system, be part of the, they want to be, they want, I don't want to say they want to be employees, but they want to, start living American dream, right? Like what things that we see on TV, people, having breakfast with their kids in the morning, and the breakfast nook within their own single family home.
That's right.
And then the families go to school. I mean, the parents go to work, and the kids go to school. Right? But when you have your own business, it's a totally different thing, right?
Yeah.
So one thing that, please educate me on these two words. What is the difference between Latino and Hispanic?
So Hispanic speaks specifically to the people that are of Spanish descent, so it's like the descendants of like the Spanish when they came to the Americas. And those people have like things in common, which many times, includes the Spanish language. And then Latino is more broad, where it includes people, for example, like from Brazil, and, people who are, really don't have that like Spanish per se background. And it's more broad. But I would say that if you travel in Latin America, and if you talk to many Latinos, they call each other Latinos. In my experience, I know there are communities, even here in the U.S., like in the Southwest, or more towards Texas, California, where they even have like different terms. They could be like Chicano or Hispanos, so it can depend on your community, where you're from. But I'd say, like, in a broad context, I would say that Latino is the most common. There's the Latinx term, that started being used here. And from my research, from my reading, and also my own experience, that is not a term that people from Latin America, especially like the first generations here, like they're not using that term as much. I think in some like surveys or things like that, it's come up that only 3% maybe of the population use that. So again, because my magazine, I'm trying to reach like the broadest, group of Latinos. Like, I just keep it as Latino. I do use the word Hispanic sometimes too, but I stick mainly to those two. If we're publishing something that's more geared to like a younger generation, like maybe they're like a third generation or something, then we will use Latinx too.
And what do you think are the challenges that your community are facing right now?
Specific to Pittsburgh, or just in general?
Let's do both. Pittsburgh in a local, and then in a broader national level.
I think, we've touched upon it already a little bit. People getting here, like trying to find jobs. Many people are moving here. And when you talk to them, they say, oh, there's more jobs here, or the jobs pay better here than they do in other cities where the Hispanic population is like really like larger, way larger than here. So then they're finding that it's just like a better place and a place where they can afford housing. But still, some of the issues that they're facing are still, like language related, like how can they access this or that? And they don't know what's available. And that's where the Hispanic organizations come in, where they, Latino Community Center, Casa San Jose, like they help connect people to the resources that are available. And I think challenges that are, I guess, like for everyone, it's just like many end up working like a few different jobs, in order to make ends meet and things like that. And it's like, trying to balance, like they have kids, like they don't want to be like out of their home all day, when they have like their kids at home. And I'd say, especially when COVID came around, when people had to, like their kids had to go to school online, like many of them, like, and with parents that didn't speak English, like it's like, how did they know what was happening? And again, the Latino community, the Latino organizations, they stepped in to
Wonderful.
Try to bridge that gap. But it's just things that have to do with employment, with having access to resources, even things like, insurance, like what insurance do they need for this or that, how to comply, with maybe certain laws, or just different things, even business owners, like them knowing, well, you have a restaurant, here's what the health department, like like needs you
it's
to
not
do.
as easy as, well, I
Right.
don't know in Puerto Rico, but, in my country, if you want to sell something, just open your garage or just like, open your porch and there you go. You
Now
sell
you're selling.
things.
Right. So permits, like, all those kinds of things. Just getting that guidance that they need. And then, I don't know, in the country overall, I would say, more of that, but then also I know that some places that have larger Latino communities, sometimes like they have, maybe there's like more stigma in their region, more racism, things like that are experienced, not meaning that there's none here, but that maybe like in larger communities, there's just broader, of those types of things that, that people are trying to improve overall.
All right. So you just mentioned racism that you also covered in the public source that we talk about article. It's still here, right? So, in your opinion, and probably also by talking to a lot of Latino leaders in Pittsburgh, what can we do? We means here. I'm an immigrant, right? I'm outside the United States. I came from outside the United States. So I came from Puerto Rico. That people still thought that Puerto Rico was not the United States, right? So, but we are facing the same problem, which is like mind blowing, right? So
Right.
What's the approach right now by that's been proposed or being worked on by the Latino leaders here in Pittsburgh?
So I've always thought, in looking at this issue, that we need to educate people, and that it comes from that. If people don't know, then they're just left with whatever ideas they grew up with, or what their community is saying, or what politicians are saying, and I think we have to educate, and that is part of the mission for me with the magazine, and having that English section, which it's for Latino English speakers, but also for our community, so that people can see the great things that Latinos are doing here in Pittsburgh, for Pittsburgh. And I think the more we distribute that information, then people will know, and if someone meets me and and I teach them, because teaching, is not the classroom. You can teach someone just by talking to them, letting them know where you come from, your experiences. Then I can help that, like I can do my part in helping fight, any racism, any generalizations, things like that exist, that divide us. We can come together. We're all human beings, first of all. And I think we can all connect, with like a mother trying to do the best for their children, a father, working hard to, bring what his family needs, people trying to find better jobs. I think as human beings, we can connect to that.
So you mentioned about fight racisms, that we need to educate, but we have to define who we is, right? Right. So like we educate. So whose responsibility to educate them, right? So who's we?
I think it's all of us. I think it's really all of us. I know people. Well, I've had conversations like this with friends, or family members, and we've maybe talked about situations that we've had. How even my kids, at school sometimes, comments they've heard, and it's like, what do you do? When you're faced with these like comments. And I've always thought all of us have three choices. And the choices are I would say it's not my favorite choice, but sometimes maybe depending on who it comes from, the context, maybe you decide to ignore it. Like I said, that's not my first choice. Second, and it's actually my favorite choice, is that you teach, that you say, well, you know what, actually, here's the truth, or, here's what people are doing, or did you know that blah, 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 And then third, and I've told this to my kids, and again, not my favorite choice either, but every now and then, I think you have to stand up. And maybe there is someone close to me who is very, just kind of like direct, and that person uses sarcasm to get back at the other person or things like that. And I think that sometimes, unfortunately, it comes to that, to just kind of like hold your space and be strong. And bad word, I don't know. I'm not like a bad word person, but maybe, I know some people who have done it that way, but really, and I try to emphasize to my kids that we need to educate one another.
Okay.
And we, all of us can learn from each other.
Right.
Like even though we have our like immigrant experiences here, but we can still learn from like other people, from other places. And same, I think, just that's our responsibility. Yeah.
I like those three choices that you mentioned, like ignore, like you teach, or you stand up and, fight.
Right.
And it also reminds me of the story that you shared where you were in a store with your mother and your child, and somebody, spoke, inappropriate things, but not in your face or not even near you, just somewhere, in the supermarket, like I don't know how many aisles back, right? So they're covered. They could be anonymous just by saying it because you couldn't tell, right?
Right.
And yeah, at that point you had no choice, other than ignore or
Right. Right. Or like go follow them.
Can you say it again?
Right.
Right. So so that was the choice that you had to make, right? Just by ignoring it, right? I mean, So what did you tell your kids? What did you tell your children?
So I think back at that time, my kids were younger. So
Okay.
yeah, like I don't know, like I said in that article, I don't know that they heard it. Maybe they heard it and they didn't think, they were talking to us. I don't know. But yeah, they were maybe like 6, 4. They're kind of like in their own worlds looking at toys and things like that. But I think, it just hurts us as parents or as members of the community. And it's not that you're surprised by it because you hear about it all the time, right? But it's just kind of like experiencing it in that way. Like it just really kind of like makes you stop there like for a second and be like, what just happened? Yeah.
Yeah. So, and a lot of this examples, when I see this ignore and teach and stand up, is we now we have the responsibility. We are the victims, but at the same time, have the responsibility to teach them, right? So, but is there a way that? So, I mean, which is hard, right? So, I mean, you have to deal with ourselves, with our emotions, with our response. How are we going to respond? And now we have to be mindful and slow down our rage, and then teach the other people, but at the same, but to make sure that they're not getting more upset, right? So just wish that this education part is also taken. This education responsibility is also taken by their side, But the problem is sometimes they don't recognize that that's a problem. Right?
Yeah, correct. I think when it comes to that, it's more about the institutions. It's more about school. Like what school teaching, what any community places and
churches.
Yeah. It's like, what are they sharing with their communities? And I mean, sometimes like you find out, you're like, oh my God, here's like a kind of like a leader of the community, and look at what they're saying. Like it doesn't really help us or them, it doesn't. So yeah, you just wish it was a broader effort from everyone,
Right.
like who's part of the community. Yeah.
So going back to educating or teaching your communities about employment, insurance, resources, what is the business opportunities. I'm just wondering, from people from the outside, I don't want to say the outside, but outside of Pittsburgh, outside of again this cultural things that we do here, was there any particular thing that they find they were surprised, like what they're doing this? Why are they doing this? Why do we need this? Is there any particular thing that they feel that the system doesn't make sense?
When you're saying that, are you talking about like the magazine, or like what are you referring to?
Probably referring to this PHDC.
Oh, PHDC. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when they're helping them, sometimes like they're teaching people, and there's like, what? Why do we need to do this?
Oh,
their frustration about the systems.
Sure. No, I think all those organizations have like a really important role, because I believe more than just like a single person, here and there. Like they are more in touch with like leaders in the community, like in the broad community, and they do have that important responsibility to kind of bridge, connect with those people, but also kind of like spreading the word of like what we are, like what they're doing. And by the way, I think they all do an excellent job all the executive directors of all those organizations. But sure, and I think they do. They already do try to spread the word.
Is it also part of their missions to educate non-Latino? So we mentioned that the racism requires education. Is it also part of the missions of PHDC to educate the non-Latino,
the broader community?
Yeah, about things that the Latinos facing that we are hoping that the other people are fixing their problems as well.
Yeah. So I believe like when they have, like their meetings, when they're connecting to like the different like government leaders or things like that, they do bring up these, like any issues that are happening and what kind of help people need. And that way kind of keeping it like front and center, here's our community, we're here. And besides also spreading like the great impact that people are having here in the city, even economically and all that, but also pointing out that that we're like kind of like a unique group that has specific needs, and putting that out there so that they know.
Has it been successful, or have you seen some frustrations saying that, this is the fourth time I'm telling the same leaders about that, sometimes that you don't feel heard,
I think that for the most part, it's been successful. I mean, I've heard, many different programs and things like that where they've had the backup and the resources, that they've asked for. And, every now and then, nothing is perfect. So, and there's always room for improvement. So yeah, I have heard, on occasion, maybe like they've been bringing up such and such thing. And, maybe they haven't gotten the response that they're waiting for.
Because it takes time. Everything takes time, right? Sometimes it takes persistence.
Yeah.
Right. So is that also the role that you take as the publisher of Pittsburgh Latino Magazine, to have or to ask or to seek accountability from the government?
I would say the main role of or the goal of the different articles that we have are mostly like for the community to get the information that they need.
Okay.
Every now and then there may be a story that's meant more like, hey, like look at what happened. Maybe we can improve this next time. But it is not a focus of ours to, kind of like have that kind of take right now.
All right. So you're part of the Pittsburgh Media Partnership, right? So what kind of collaborations or partnership that you are hoping from that group?
So I am really, really just pleased and grateful, to be a part of the Pittsburgh Media Partnership. Thanks to like the very first people that I met there, including yourself, and the leaders, Andy and everyone. They really pushed me, to go for publishing the magazine, because for a while there I was just kind of like, well, do I do this? Like, how am I going to do it? And I was just kind of like, just do it. So I'm very grateful for that. And I've learned so much, not going to like a journalism school, not being officially trained as a journalist, like sometimes, it could feel like, especially in the beginning, like, am I really right?
Am I here?
Exactly.
I'm not educated as a journalist. So
right. But yeah, like you don't necessarily have to go to school, I guess, like to be able to, do some of the work that we do. But that's where, the Pittsburgh Media Partnership like comes in, like just being able to, hear everyone's, all the great things, and then all kind of like the challenges as well, learning from that, and also like the opportunity for collaboration. which we collaborated on 3 stories with Pittsburgh City paper. That was like our first collaboration, and that was great. Just kind of like going to different areas within the region and kind of like exploring how the Latino community was increasing in all those areas. But I think it's powerful, like the being able to collaborate and have a group of similarly passionate people who are just bringing the stories from our region out to the public.
So, what's the future for Pittsburgh Latino Magazine?
Well,
short term and long term.
Well, we just started publishing like our first printed version because we've been on. Yeah, it was hard. We've been online 3 years, and finally this year it was like, okay, well, it just feels like it's time, to take that step. So for now, it is every 3 months. So it's like seasonal, but perhaps in the future it could be every 2 months or monthly. We'll see.
Daily.
We'll see where that goes. And I would say just like more collaboration, more posting like more frequently. And hopefully bring in like some more staff that can, just kind of make it into like what is it called? A well-oiled machine or something?
Well-oiled machine.
Like
yeah.
I would love, for it to get to that place. Contributions, we've always been open to having people contribute, but I just don't think that, like not everyone knows. So, just kind of like putting it out there. Hey, you can like, whatever you have to say, like we're here to help you get that message out there. So yeah, it's like a little bit of our plans.
Okay. Then what do you need to make that happen? Especially from you guys.
So I think, being able to know what funding is out there, like if there's some like foundations that have any programs that organizations and publications like Pittsburgh Latino Magazine, just knowing, because sometimes I do find after the fact, that is something that I could have applied for. But that would be great, knowing like what opportunities are out there to take advantage of. Always like the funding is always important. I would say that's probably the main thing.
It's probably something that the Pittsburgh Media Partnership can help, right? Because it's a collection of brains, right? I don't know how many members you guys have right now, right? If they let each other know, right? Hey, there's something coming up here.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah.
Right.
Sometimes
even
they
do. Even though
do.
it's hard because so many hands going into the same jar.
Right. But yeah, like whenever they've had something, I've definitely taken advantage of it, and I'm very grateful for that. So yeah, they do bring up, when there's opportunities that are available, and just other ones. I know, like in the pandemic, I launched right in the pandemic, so it was like March 2020, and
that's brave.
Right. But actually, that year brought a lot of like opportunities, kind of linked to the COVID pandemic and just informing the community and things like that. So I was able to, thankfully, take advantage of. I got a grant from like Facebook journalism project and other like journalism institutions, and that was great. But obviously those things are not here anymore. So any other chances that there are to participate in things like that, those are great.
Wonderful, great. Thank you for joining me, chatting about life and journalism and about our, immigrant stories. Not immigrants, just U.S. citizens, for Christ's sake. All right. All right, great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right.